Raise your hand if you have ever started a new habit, missed a day, and then felt like you had to start all over from scratch. I have been there, my friend. And here's the thing: missing a day does not mean that you've failed, it is actually part of the process. And today we're going to be talking about how to stop falling into the start over cycle and create self care habits that actually stick for good. So, welcome, my friends, to the Magic Mindfulness podcast. I am Rachel Hupp, your host, and I'm just so glad that you are here. Now, this is where we take self care, mindfulness, yoga beyond the mat so that you can create alignment in your life in a way that feels real, doable, and nourishing. Now, we are in part 4 of the self care series. And if you've been following along, you've probably already started shifting the way that you think about self care. Now, in episode 1, we talked about why slowing down feels so hard and how to make space for yourself without feeling guilty. Then in episode 2, we tackled that perfectionist trap, why that all or nothing, black or white thinking keeps self care feeling impossible. And in the last episode, we released overwhelm, learning how to let go of just one thing to create space for what matters. And today we're talking about why self care habits don't stick and how you can fix it. Because let's be real. How many times have you started a new habit, a new self care habit, whatever it is, only to fall off track? I have been there too. Let me know in the comments if you have been there. It is March now. It is March 11th as I'm recording this. And so for many of us, those New Year's resolutions, whatever they were, have fallen long by the wayside, right? So maybe you said you were going to do a daily meditation, a morning workout, or journaling, and then you missed a day, felt like you failed, and you're like, well, I'll just push it off till Monday. I'll start over Monday or next month, next week, whatever, or even never, right? Now, if that sounds familiar, I just want you to know that you are not the problem. The way you've been taught to build habits is the problem. So, what do I mean by that? Well, we're going to dive deeper into this. We are going to be breaking down the two biggest myths about building habits. I'm going to introduce the minimum baseline method, the simplest way to create a self care habit that actually lasts, and help you tie self care into who you are, not just something else on that never ending to do list. And then next time in episode 5, we're going to wrap up the series by talking about how to make self care non negotiable. Because once you've got that habit in place, how do you keep it from slipping back off your priority list, right? So let's dive in. So, if you've ever thought, I didn't, and I still don't know how to take care of myself or how to relax, I don't even know how to relax anymore, you are not alone. Most women, let's be real, we're not taught how to sustainably care for ourselves. And that's why I want to help you shift from trying to get it right to focusing on what actually works. So let's talk about the biggest mistake that people tend to make when trying to build a self care habit. They think the problem is motivation. They tell themselves, I just need to be more disciplined. I can't tell you how many times I've told myself that. Or I need to find a routine I can commit to and really stick with it this time. I've told myself that many, many times before as well. So here's what actually happens: they start too big, they try to do everything at once. And the moment they miss a day, they feel like they failed. Have you ever been there before? Does that sound familiar? Because I know I can see myself in those words. So if you've been there too, my friend, it is not your fault. Most of us were never taught how to make these habits, these routines actually work, actually stick. So, myth number 1 is that I just need to be more motivated. But the reality is, motivation is unreliable. Motivation is high when you're excited about a new habit, but after a few days, when life gets busy or the stress kicks in, the motivation disappears right out the door. And if your self-care habit relies on motivation, it is not going to last. The truth, successful habits are not built on motivation. They are built on consistency. And consistency comes from starting small enough that you can keep going even on the hardest days, even on the days when you just don't feel like it. And then myth number 2 is that if I miss a day, I have failed. So maybe if you're like me, you have skipped a workout and thought, well, now my whole routine is off. I might as well just wait and start over on Monday. Let me tell you, this mindset is such a huge reason why people struggle with consistency. Let me tell you, missing a day, missing one day, it does not mean that you have failed. It is a natural part of building a habit. The people who succeed are not the ones who never miss a day. They are the ones who get back to it without making it a big deal. So let's shift from I have to be perfect to I just have to keep going. And so, if motivation is not the answer, what is? It's something I like to call the minimum baseline method, and it works like this: set a habit so small you can't fail. So, hear me out. Instead of, I'm going to meditate for 20 minutes every single morning, try, I'm going to take one deep breath before I check my phone. Instead of, I'll do a full workout 5 days a week. Try, I'll stretch for 30 seconds while my coffee brews. The key here, you don't have to stop at the minimum baseline. Once you're already breathing deeply, once you're already stretching, you might feel like doing more. But even if you do just the minimum, you are still winning because you're showing up. And showing up, that is the foundation of consistency. So let me ask you this. Have you ever thought, raise your hand, let me know in the comments, there's never enough time in the day? If that is true, how can we expect self care to happen only when we have extra time? We have to approach it differently. We have to, not as something extra, but as something that fits into the life that we already have. Instead of thinking as self care as one more thing on your to do list, one more task to check off, I want to invite you to start seeing it as part of who you are, non negotiable. Ask yourself, what would a person who takes care of themselves do? Would she move her body? Would she pause for a mindful breath? Would she prioritize rest, even in small ways? By making your self care, by making these habits part of who you are, part of your identity, it becomes effortless. So instead of saying, oh, I have to do this self care habit, you say, I am someone who takes care of myself. And so here's what I invite you to take away from today's episode: motivation isn't the problem, habit design is the problem. The minimum baseline method makes self care sustainable. So start small and let it grow from there. Self care, it's not just something you do, it's not just one more thing on that never ending to do list. It's part of who you are. So, what is one tiny self care habit that you can commit to this week? Drop it in the comments or send me a message over on Instagram at I am Rachel Hupp. And let me know. I love hearing from you. I love cheering you on. And if this episode resonated with you, be sure to go back and listen to episode 3 if you missed it, because we talked about how to release overwhelm and create space for self care. And then tune in next time, because we're going to be wrapping up the series with episode 5, where we're going to be talking about how to make self care non negotiable. Until then, my friends, start small, show up for yourself, and remember, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep going.